said that, I was overlooked. And I'm going to say, I don't mind that because a lot of the earlier work should be overlooked. I try not to look back at any of my work. I mean, a lot of.
Yay!
What is up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of We Got Issues. And today, it's another special day here at the Uncensored Nerds Network. I know you guys can see who I'm about to speak with, but before I introduce her, we'll go ahead and name a couple of things that she's done here in the past. You may know her as one of the first and original commercial artists hired at Image Comics beyond the original 7. She worked on various books in the publication, including Gen 13, Stormwatch, Backlash. In 1997, she also worked at Marvel Comics on titles like Iron Man, Captain America, and X-Force. In 2002, 2002 is when she became a household name when she started her work at DC Comics, beginning with Adventures of Superman, then moved on to Birds of Prey, Robin, Superman, and then Batman. Besides what I just mentioned, she also worked on Superman Earth 1, Infinite Crisis, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Batgirl, and Convergence. And finally, a title that most of you listeners and majority of current DC fans know her from the historic 5-part miniseries Flashpoint. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Sandra Hope, how are you doing today, ma'am?
I am doing well, thank you.
I try to get as much as your work there as possible. But like our past discussion before we did this interview, you're like, oh well, how do you know my work? I'm like, you touched everything that is amazing, so why would I not know your work? Especially Flashpoint. So I mean, for me, I'm like, I was kind of baffled, like not like that not a lot of people would know who you are. I mean, like you like a very significant in coming from the 90s all the way down to today.
Oh. Well, I think that to be honest, there's like so much work that I've done. There's a whole long time period where I do not remember what I worked on. It was like anything and everything that that would come across, not even my desk or anything else that would sit around. I wanted to get as much experience and exposure as possible. So I would ink anything, whether it be like a one-page fill-in to help out on, like a late book or like a pinup or, part of any like background, anything at all. So I said no to absolutely nothing. And that meant a lot of long hours, which meant that I really honestly do not remember all the different projects that I've worked on. Just because like bring the page over, I will ink it, next. And a lot of it was I'll say sleep deprivation was a big part of it. So my focus is just on working, and I honestly do not remember all the titles and issues or pages that I've worked on. So there are a lot of small projects that and like licensing stuff. I happily did anything that Warner Brothers or DC would need someone on. So in the beginning you want to do as much work as possible, and as an inker you want to work on as many pencilers as possible, just to get your work out there so it could be seen. So maybe you can build some relationship with pencilers, because as an inker you are not known, and the only reason or anyone who would know you would be like a penciler who might see your work on another penciler who might have like a similar style. so that's where like putting out as much work as possible and making it as quality as possible, because it does not do me any favors to put out
Right.
bad work. Or you work as fast as you can and with the highest quality as you can. I think that's kind of the goal. But when you're just starting off, like, experience is a big thing. um,
Yeah.
Getting as much experience as possible, and I had no experience, to be honest. So you did have like a nice little bio there, and uh, I do, and I've read a lot of these. I do it. I know I'm not the only one, but I've read some some of the bio that is online. A little bit of it's a little off. I think
Mhm.
I did the Marvel work. I've never really worked for Marvel. I think I did some Marvel stuff when they were doing some work with Wildstorm.
Mhm.
So I think I got to help out on like a couple like Iron Man pages, and what else? I got to help out on a little bit of like, just like I said, miscellaneous stuff, and but that was through
Mhm.
Wildstorm, and
Yeah.
that's why I started. And I'm gonna throw out a title that, I mean, till today, I still, and it was my start. So it was Crimson for Wildstorm. That was a cliffhanger with Umberto Ramos.
Okay.
That was my big break. That was my
Mhm.
big. So that was the first series I did, and then the other title that I think gave me a little bit of recognition or a name or a lot of experience was Justice
Mhm.
League with Ed Benes, and that was written by Brad Meltzer, who is
Right.
amazing human being, really, really kind, really, really nice.
Yeah.
And I was still a rookie there, and that made me feel like I was officially working in comics. So
Right.
I had a solid run with Crimson, and then I did Out There with Umberto. So Umberto was
Right.
really, really generous, and he gave me a start in the business. And then, after that, I think I grew a little bit more with Justice League, and that's when, or it was soon after Warner Brothers had acquired Wildstorm. So
Yeah.
I think those are my two biggest, the longest run, and two of the biggest projects that people still mention today. I don't go to too many conventions, but when I do, those
Right.
definitely come up. And in my social media, those two titles come up all the time because there's very, very strong fan base for those two. So I'm grateful for those, and of course Flashpoint, which is
Yeah.
is amazing. So I think that is definitely that's all Andy.
Yeah.
So,
It, wa-
yeah,
it was I actually worked backwards because what ended up happening is that when there's a book that resonate with me a lot, and then I look at the artist and the writer, and then I follow their career backwards from where it got me into them, and then I take a look at what their past history was. So when I looked at Flashpoint,
oh yeah,
the first thing I saw was Sandra Hope on it, and then I was like, who is Sandra Hope? And then I started working backwards, and the first thing I thought about was this this artist has touched every single amazing artist out there. Like you said, I was just gonna mention Ed Benes is one of them too as well. I still follow Ed Benes and I still love his pencils. And then I look at like what you mentioned with the Justice League with Ed Benes and Brad Metzler. And I was like, it's although Ed Benes is good, but without your hand on it, I was like, it's not the Ed Benes that I know. And then I started looking backwards a little bit more, and then the Infinite Crisis that I thought
oh,
it
yeah, of
was Scott,
course.
that I thought it was Scott Williams was actually you. So now, and then I started even looking further down, and I'm just like, okay, so there's like Gen 13 too, and then found out that you were one of the originals to be commercially signed at Image Comics. And it's that was actually pretty cool though, because for the longest time, a lot of people pretty much credited only one person who was commercially signed, which is weird. Which is Marat Michaels, because that was like the popular thing, that he was the first one to be signed commercially. It's what's been like on the internet and what's being talked about. Like he was the first one, and then there's others that came follow it. And I didn't even know that you were one of the first ones too, as well. And that's actually pretty amazing. I'm like, how did that come about? Because I don't usually ask that question often, because a lot of stories about Image has already been said and done. But you are someone very unique, because in my point of view, this is not a this is not something to say something bad about your career, but it seems like you are overlooked, even though you touch everyone's work. Like that is, to me, it baffles me a little bit, because when I first touched Flashpoint, when it first came out, I thought to myself, I'm like, there should be more work for this woman right here. But like, how did that come about first? Like with the Image Comics, how, like, did you have the exact same origin story as everyone I've talked to? Like you just walked in and be like, hey, you guys need somebody? I'm here.
Oh,
How
the
did that
exact
work?
same. Yeah, exact same story. No, I love that. It is good to ask people what their origin was, how they got started, because I think like in every artist, or everyone that you speak to, I think there's going to be a unique story. Some may have similarities, but each unique stories, because in comics or in a career like this, it's not like any other mainstream career where you send in a resume or you go in and fill out an application. It is not like that at all. So I think it is fun to talk about how people got introduced, or how people break into the industry. And I don't know about, like, there, of course there are the original Image guys, which everyone knows their names. And I think I'm sort of and there are waves of artists after that, pencilers, inkers, writers. There are waves that came after the
Mhm.
original. There's like second, third waves. It depends. I mean, it's not like well defined. But I came in more on the tail end.
Okay.
And you said something, you said that, I was overlooked. And I'm going to say, I don't mind that, because a lot of the earlier work should be overlooked. I don't necessarily think that everyone should see everything you've done, because there's a whole huge learning stage there. And looking back, I try not to look back at any of my work, because I immediately want to redo it. And
They're the
that's
fun
something
parts.
that
They're the
you have
fun parts, because you see how you evolved, right?
exactly. That's the fun thing. Like I don't necessarily want to hide it either. So it is kind of fun to look back, because if you can look back and see, and with a smile, and feel a little bit of like just recalling the ride, the because in during that time, as I've
Mhm.
said, like it was just I if anyone understands this business, what it's like to work in it, it is it's a it's if you want to get anywhere, if you want to get, especially in those days, if you want to establish yourself, you get on that train and you go. You take on whatever work comes, and you work
Mhm.
as much as and learn as much as you can, especially, like I said, with me, like I had so much, and I still have so much to learn. I had so much to learn. And every single day for years and years and years, like I said, even until now, I still feel like I'm so far behind, looking at my peers. I feel like I there's like there's no time to rest or sleep because I have so much catching up to do just to keep up with these guys. And it's okay. You can say they're guys. They're mostly guys, and um, it's it's humbling and it's inspiring at the same time. So that's a little bit. I went off a little bit on the side there, but how I started was. Um, I was introduced to comics as a girlfriend of an artist, an aspiring artist.
Yeah.
And he wanted to get into comics, and this is in the early 90s. So this image had just started. And so my boyfriend, my college boyfriend at the time, and a bunch of friends who they would get together in the evenings, like after. And I didn't have a car, so I mean, he was basically my ride everywhere. We worked together. So after work, we worked at a restaurant. So after work, or sometimes on the weekends, I like I say, he was my ride everywhere. So they would get together at the comic shop in Sacramento, and one of his friends, not my friend, had a comic shop, and the guys would get together and draw. And one of those guys, like Tom Coker was one of those guys, C.P. Smith. So they would get together and draw, and I didn't know any. I wasn't a comic book reader. I wasn't an artist. The only art I did were lab sketches in my science in my my lab book. So I was kind of stuck there for a while. So I would pick up a few comic books and read. So that was my introduction to comics. And like I said, he was an inspiring artist. So of course, San Diego Comic Con. So after I graduated from college, San Diego was big with biotech, so I went there for work, and the convention's there. So everyone would come over and submit submission packets, and that's just Xerox copies stapled together of your samples of work. So just for fun, I submitted some stuff, and I just walked around, just dropped off some some your little inking samples.
Right.
And and I think as a joke, I think Jim had the guys give me a call. So I started as Alex Gardner, Trevor Scott, and Sal Regla's inking assistant. So that's how I started. And after a little bit, and this is on the side of my my job at the Biotech Institute. So I would do fill in blacks and do borders, and that's pretty much all that I was allowed to do. That's really all I should have done because that's all I know how to do. So they literally taught me how to do just draw the lines on the borders and fill in the blocks. They'll outline everything, put an X there. Sandra, just fill it in. That's all that I did. So that's how I got started. And I think, like I said, it was probably just for giggles that they called me. And I think after being there for a short time, I got a little more curious because I didn't really want a job. But to be honest, I took the assistant job because I was still trying to get my boyfriend's work to be seen at the studio. So but the longer I was there, I got a little more curious, and I got I was drawn in a little bit more. So I slowly was experimenting and and then just one day Trevor asked if I would assist him full time, which meant that I would have to quit my work at the institute. And that was a huge leap because that's what I went to school for. That was my college degree, biochem. So it was kind of, but working at the Wildstorm studio was even more rare than getting a job, at at a peptide institute. So I just took a chance just to see where it would go. So, and I'm still here. I'm still
Yeah.
here in comics.
Who needs biochem? You can go to comics. That's way more fun.
Yeah, engineers are a dime a dozen.
Well, I wanna ask you one more fanboy question because I've interviewed a lot of like what I like to refer to the show a lot is the Image Children, which is Ryan Benjamin, Tyler
Yeah,
Kirkham, Mike Choi.
yeah,
I interview all of them, which on a side note, I always thought about doing a documentary out of you guys instead of the Image Seven. I want to hear more about your stories.
yeah.
One of the prominent stories that sticks in my head is what Ryan Benjamin told me is that everything there is chaotic. Uh, when he
Mhm.
arrived, they said, "Sit."
It was,
Jim Lee told him, "Sit here and just draw." And he's like, "What am I gonna draw? I don't know. Just draw something." Was he right? What was that something like? Possibly sounds, just about right.
like I told you, it was a fast moving train. You get on and you go and you go. It wherever the train goes, you go.
Yeah,
If you can't, and it's not going to slow down for you if you can't hang on. It's just you decide. I think you decide if it's for you or not. I think that, like I said, many sleepless nights, and it's like I said, each one of us have our own unique stories. I mean, we were all on the same train, but we had different seats.
yeah,
Um, some of us were just kind of hanging on the side. We didn't even have seats.
yeah.
So in that case, you said you hang on and you
Yeah,
ride every bump and
right.
you take on every
Yeah,
curve. So
yeah,
I think so. Yes. So Ryan and I were kind of about the same time. You said the children. So, like I said, many waves, little ripples.
right.
After the original, the original guys, and there was lots going on, and I think that it seemed like it went by really fast, and I think it's
Yeah,
because we were all really busy, and I think that for me, I there was so much learning. There's so much learning, not
mhm,
just about the business, about the schedule of the business, about you know like the art itself. When I say business, I don't just mean like not just the art or the creating aspect of it, but like
yeah.
the scheduling. And we did not get it all right. I mean, a lot of, I'm sure a lot of missed deadlines, all hands
Yeah,
on deck, all kinds of stuff. So
right.
there was so much that was packed in
Yeah,
those years. And you can do, I think someone may have done a few like stories or kind of like, I don't know, documentaries, or those only visuals, I don't know.
mhm,
But there's so many stories like in studio, out of studio. Um and I want to say that mine is probably the most unique. You can probably, yeah, I mean, I think just,
yeah,
you can probably guess
yeah,
why. Don't really look like the other ducks. And
yeah,
and to be honest, like it, to me, the the one one of the biggest reasons why it's different for being a female is that you can't blend in the same. I
mhm,
don't, no secret, the boys went to the boys club,
mhm,
um and I don't fit there. I can't
mhm,
hang out with them after hours and drink. I think
right.
I, one of the things that happened was like, and then the guys hang out. That's not, that's not
Mhm,
available to me the same way, because it
mhm,
rumors get started, and even if you do absolutely nothing, rumors still go around,
yeah,
and that's absolutely fine. People will do and say whatever. It's just drama and distractions and noise, and
mhm,
it's stuff that I didn't have time for. So all I wanted to do
mhm,
was learn and establish myself and have none of that stuff be noise that's going to dilute like the work that I do. What
mhm,
Whether it's good or bad, whether you like me or not, I wanted to be only for my work. Absolutely fine with me if you take a pass on me because my work is not that great or doesn't quite fit the project. That's absolutely fine. I don't want any other drama, and you can't avoid that stuff anyway. People are going to do what people will do. But so I do, I do have to say that with every individual, we have to find our own way, our own path to, and like maneuver around the obstacles, because it's all different. Whether if you're a minority, if you're not a minority, if you're a female, if you're a guy, if you're tall, short, whatever, we all have our own sets of obstacles to overcome.
Yeah.
So, like I said, for me, it was just like, I kid you not, I bet you like a whole bunch of people wouldn't know what I looked like other than like just this, because I'm always my desk is at the corner of the studio, and I was usually there from like, sometimes I'm there like 2 or 3 days in a row. I don't leave the studio. Thanks to my sister who was, would look after my dog when I didn't drive home because I haven't slept. So my main focus was I'm just going to work and do as much work as I can, learn as much as I can, let my work speak, for itself. And I don't want me being a woman to be an issue, or, positive or negative work against me. And it still will, no matter who you are. Sometimes people just don't like you, whether you're a guy or a girl or whatever. Sometimes it's just chemistry between people, and they can just say, I don't want to work with that guy. I just don't like him. I don't have a reason why. It doesn't have anything to do with his gender, color, or ethnicity. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But and that will happen. You can't avoid that because people are people. So for me, being at the studio, I think that, like I said, we all have our unique stories, and I think they're all fun stories to tell. Like Ryan, I'm sure has, you've spoken to Ryan. He's like high energy. I still adore Ryan. We're friends, and I think that the one thing I'll say, Ryan, when you're at the studio, I think a lot of the learning has to be has to come from you. It's your own obligation to learn as much or as little as you want. Nobody was going to babysit you. Jim definitely shows by example, like work hard, because he always worked hard. He was always there working. The one thing that Ryan did teach me, because no one will set you aside just to teach you stuff. And like I said, I just sat there and I just did my own thing. I didn't really ask. I didn't talk. I didn't ask questions. I didn't do lunch. I didn't do coffee. None of that. I made my own coffee. I brought my own brown bagging, lunch. But I'm always working. I'm usually in there by 7, and the studio's quiet. So I make my coffee, I sit down, I get started, and momentum is everything. So I'm working, and the guys are rolling like, late mornings or, midday. And so I'm always working, and, they take off for lunch, they take off for coffee or whatever and come back. I am glued to my desk. So Ryan, one day in the artist office, Ryan, they had like like games that they would take, like in bean bags. They would, hang out and play games and stuff. So Ryan goes, come here, you work too much. He goes, come on down here. I'm going to teach you how to play Street Fighter. I don't play games, Ryan. I'm like, I got work to do. He's like, come on. He's like, come on. So I have to say, so Ryan is, is fun, and that guy works hard, works hard, and he forced me, and he taught me to just take a little break, have a little fun, because I think, like I said, being female, being a woman there, I wanted to make sure that the only thing that anyone notices about me was my work, and that was it. It wasn't and because all the other stuff will kind of come, whether you do anything or not, people are gonna,
Yeah.
I don't kind of dismiss you,
Yeah.
or whatever. But so I felt like I had no room to goof off or to mess around. But Ryan
Right.
made sure that even if it's just a short amount of time, have a little fun while you're here. You can join the party too, and
Right.
it's like it's cool.
Yeah.
So I still appreciate Ryan for that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. You and Ryan, by the way, you guys don't age. You guys are like ageless. It's insane. Like I told Ryan Benjamin on during our interview that I thought, because again I work backwards. I thought that he just came up from the business, like he's just brand new. And then I did more research. I was like, oh my god, you're like one of the image people. I was like, oh. And then we started talking, but like, yeah, I told him like he looked fantastic. I was like, man, you guys don't age at all. Like you, Tyler Kirkham, Mike Choi. I don't know what you guys were drinking in the studio there, but
a lot
none
of
of you
coffee.
have aged at all. Like
It's
at
the
all.
sleeplessness. So maybe the whole thing they tell you about sleeping, it's like it's completely the opposite because I didn't sleep.
Yeah,
Um,
just don't sleep. Just coffee and don't sleep.
we didn't. I didn't realize sleeping more than like 3 hours, was a thing until like maybe 5 years ago. But yeah,
Yeah,
no, Ryan and I started, I think, about the same time. So we were kind of
yeah,
like, and he lived out uh, in Florida too. I believe, and Sean Ruffner and Brett went to the same art school out here in
mm,
Florida. And so yeah, and the joke, Ryan both, and it's this joke goes way back to when we were at Wildstorm. He calls me grandma. And Alex Sinclair also calls me Grams. We call each other Grams. We always
yeah.
have. I don't know why. It's just a silly joke, and we called each other that way back in this, at Wildstorm, and it's still how we greet each other these days. Hey, Grams, did you take your prune juice today? Or just and we, so
It's a way different thing from like, hey, you want to play some Street Fighter to like fruit juice.
yeah, Ryan calls me grandma and Sinclair calls me Gramps. And but Sinclair is officially now grandpa. So when I call him Gramps, it's official now.
That actually that leads me to my next question about like working with a lot of people, especially with Ryan Benjamin and all these people. I mean, the way that your career is expanding as of right now from the very beginning, since you have touched on a lot of artists, you're pretty much like from my recent memory, you're like pretty much the Gary Oldman of illustration, that it's hard to find your own style. Because what Scott Williams has told me before is that I asked him, is like, do you find yourself looking your illustration and your style looking like Jim Lee? And the first thing that he told me was, if you've been inking somebody for years, you kind of just adapt a little bit of kind of like a muscle memory on how to illustrate. So yeah, it's gonna look like a little bit, but in your case, again, like Gary Oldman, he doesn't know what his accent is anymore, if he even had an accent, right? Because
Yeah.
he's done a lot of parts. The same with you. You've touched on so many pencils. Do you know? I mean, like, I'm not trying to be mean, but do you
No,
know
go
your
for it.
own style at all at this point, or you're just kind of like, well, I'm just kind of adaptive. Like, you're the most adaptive artist that I know of right now.
I think, to be honest, when I said I knew absolutely nothing when I started, I knew absolutely nothing. Again, I go back to the only art I ever did was in my lab books, in college,
Hmm.
and those are all like illustrations of lab setups. And I'll say that I mean, I was at UCD, and I there are a lot of smart kids around, and you do anything. And I go right to, if you know you're weak in certain areas, make sure you compensate and throw in as much flair as possible. And that goes back to my lab books. I was not the smartest kid in class or in lab, but I needed a decent score or a decent grade. So, and part of it is like, how do you sketch out your experimental, like, setups? So I've got like, like the 3D, like, drafting
Right.
table, drawing setups, and that's the only, art experience I've had. Um, but in terms of like style and flexibility, so when I came to the studio, no, I did not know how to draw or fully understand what inking was.
Hmm.
But I think the thing that worked for me was wanting to learn and knowing that I needed to learn as much as possible. Like I said, I will ink whatever they will allow me to ink, anything at all. I'm happy to
Right.
do it because I feel like with every um, piece of art I touch, that's a free class for me. I'm learning. So if I can jump around from like uh right after Crimson with Umberto, and if anybody knows Umberto's style, it's really,
Hmm.
it's like awesome, it's cool, cartoony, it's like so I went from Umberto Ramos to Doug Mackey. they're
Right.
they're very different.
Right.
So for me, um being flexible, being able to adjust to as many styles as possible as an inker, I think that's a good flexibility to have, because you want to be able to adapt to whatever job that is available. Otherwise, your job is quite limited.
Right.
Scott is great with Jim because Jim is great with Scott. I mean, they go well together. If you don't have that option as an inker, you're like, I would like to work. So that
Hmm.
means I need to be able to adjust, and that it teaches you it teaches you many other lessons. Maybe it doesn't quite like tunnel you into a specific style, but it does open up a lot of options for you
Hmm.
to choose from. So you
Hmm.
can pick and choose. Like you might you might take a little bit of like some of the elements from this, like penciler A, and then you really
Hmm.
love elements of this penciler B. Maybe you like the anatomy from this person. Maybe you like the I don't know, the movement or the storytelling from another person. So I feel like it's a wonderful option to have, to be able to adjust to different styles, because like I said, for me, it's just learning and finding out what I like and how to, and Scott's right. You can't help but learn. So for me, it just means that I get to so many different like spices to cook from. So when
Right.
I'm ready to learn and to do my own thing, uh, I do some gouache and watercolor painting. I think that I'm going to sit here and practice drawing, but I think I'm also curious about colors. I feel like
Right.
I want to understand a lot. I'm still in that like early learning stages. There's still so much for me to learn that I'm trying to pace myself. So
Right.
I sit down. I think I'm going to try to just practice penciling, but then I'm like, ooh, there's a watercolor set right there. Ooh, there's
Right.
gouache right there. And I'm going, okay, maybe it'll look better if I do a little like watercolor. Maybe it'll teach me a little bit more
Right.
about like like I don't know, shading. So now like I'm like moving towards um just doing simple pencil drawing to like days later, I've got this gouache painting thing, and I've moved on to like learning about coloring. And to look back, it looks nothing like what I intentionally started with. Like maybe I start with like, maybe I want to try to draw like Umberto Ramos. And at
Hmm.
the end, I'm actually like maybe painting a little more like, I don't know who I paint, like me, I guess. So I think that when I actually sit down and play, I do bring a little bit of everyone that I've worked on. And
Mhm.
at the end, I don't know if that means I have my own style or I'm just kind of like picking from parts of all the different, artists that I do enjoy. Like
Yeah.
some of the artists I've never worked with. Carlos Meglia, I remember really, really loving his stuff. He did a project at Wildstorm. I mean, I didn't ink him or anything. I didn't color. I had nothing to do with the
Mhm.
projects that he worked on, but I did see the books that were there. I'm like, oh, how fun is this? And I thought, the art is cool.
Right.
Um, Jason Pearson is another person who I think, oh, that would be fun to draw like that. And Arthur Adams is amazing. I don't
Mhm.
necessarily want to do all the lines that he does. I don't think anyone can out Arthur, but
Yeah.
so even if it's pencilers that I've not worked with, they've all influenced me just by like having seen just like anyone else. Like maybe I didn't read comics, I haven't read
Right.
a lot since I've been working either, but I've
Yeah.
seen a lot, and it's inspiring, and it gets you excited to maybe explore a little bit more,
Mhm.
um, in terms of like how much of the pencilers that I've worked with, how much have they influenced me. um, I honestly can't say because I've worked with, like I said, a lot of people with a lot of different styles. Like I feel like I've learned a lot from every single one. I mean, I am so lucky to have worked with so many amazing people. I've worked with Andy Kubert. I've worked with John Romita,
Mhm.
Jr. JR. He is so nice, and I'm sure many people
Yeah.
have said the same thing. He's so supportive and so kind. His style is like it's you see it, you know it, you
Yeah.
never will forget it. But I think that the only thing that outshines his art is himself and his personality.
Mhm.
So people like that, like maybe you work with them on short projects, but they always
Yeah.
leave you with something, like the encouragement that they give you and the freedom. Like Andy is the same way, where he says, "Oh, do a bunch of this here, go for it." Um, and like maybe it's a technique, something I've never done before, but
Right.
like he and John, they're both so encouraging that maybe I'm not learning from their style, but they encourage me to be a little more brave or more
Right.
adventurous, a little more confident in just going for it, and experiment and just explore my
Right.
own, um I don't know, creativity, or go on my own little adventure under their little umbrella of safety.
Right. Right.
So that teaches you a lot too. So I think through that, like, just has helped me figure out like what I enjoy doing.
Right.
And I think that's what's going to contribute
Yeah.
to your, particular styles. Like,
Yeah.
what do you have fun doing?
Right.
So that's kind of a long answer to your simple.
Well, I mean, like, that leads me to my next question that I'm very curious about. I've asked a lot of artists about flexibility and how it's a benefit to this industry, especially that you just highlighted how important it is, to have various type of styles. Um, but then my next question would be, and I'm kind of curious how you would respond to this, is that although flexibility may be an advantage to you and everybody else who would know a different style of shading and inking and pencils and all that stuff, do
Mhm.
you think that also kind of hinders your— oh no, go ahead. Do you also think that that also hinders your popularity because people aren't able to distinguish your own style? Like, for example, if I were to look at Flashpoint, I know that's Andy Kubert, but then, you were able to adapt to his pencils that almost that your name kind of fades and it's just Jeff Johnson, Andy Kubert, or
Mhm.
Infinite Crisis, or even Gen 13. Like, you're able to adapt to these artists that your name doesn't get pushed out unless you're Scott Williams, who's always attached to Jim Lee. Do you think that kind of hinders your popularity because you're able to adapt so well with these artists? It's kind of like a blessing and a curse kind of thing.
I think that's a great question. Because I think what's important is that, and this actually leads me to a post that I posted on X, and I think that people may misunderstand my intention for that post. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat it, which is repeat it and maybe explain it a little bit better. But I say that, like an inker isn't a tracer, but a penciler's best assistant. And what I mean by that, and I'm not saying that in like telling that to the world, this is what we are. Not that's not my intention. My intention was to express that to those who might want to be inkers or future inkers. It means that and there are pencilers who want tracers too. I mean, there's like all different levels of, like, if you're an inker, you can be like a really, really good, like, just throwing out all the silly jokes.
Right.
But you can be a really, really good tracer, where a penciler, that's all they want, is someone who just puts their exact art. They've finished everything in ink. Just put ink on that. Don't change anything. Just do your best tracing job. Some pencilers want that. But there are loose pencilers who might need an inker who will finish what they started in ink, and follow through, that it doesn't deviate so much from the penciler and the penciler style. So in that sense, you're kind of finishing it in his tone, in his voice. I say his, please forgive me if there's like any kind of gender thing.
Right.
Just for simplicity, I'm going to be lazy. So in that sense, you're like, your job as an inker is to finish what the penciler started, because maybe their strength is just to lay out the story, to make it interesting, to make it fun, to do the storytelling, to take the story from words to visuals and make it like dynamic, cinematic, action packed, all that stuff that comics, should be. So that's where they have their energy, and they put like all the basic foundations there, and they have like, but it's rough and it's sketchy, and there are a lot of pencils who have zero, like they lose all that energy if they have to like finish that for printing in ink. That's like Dullsville. They're like, they no longer have energy or interest in doing that. So, and this is where also for production purposes, it still needs to be done in ink, and it's going to be faster, and you give it to another person, the next one in line, which is the inker, who can now go in with fresh energy, finish that. I know what you're trying to say. I know your work. I understand it. And there's a trust from penciler to inker. So that's where I feel like if you want to be a really, really good inker, that's where being able to read the penciler in their style and to like follow through, finish it. You're kind of doing some visual editing too. Is everything, that's supposed to be there, like all the fingers there. It's if it's like a costume, or all the little things there. It's just like a quick little double check, because sometimes when under deadline, like you forget to draw a hand, that has happened. You forget to put glasses on the character, that has happened. Maybe they forgot to draw an ear, whatever it is. Like just lay it out, draw rough, pass it to your inker, and that's where like the relationship is really, really important. Like, is it the style that will complement the penciler? There are a lot of great inkers who may not necessarily work well with another great penciler. Both great, the styles just don't go together. And I think that's where, as an inker, you kind of have to understand that to be versatile, is where your value lies in the industry, because there are only so many jobs. And I think that if you can be flexible in working with different styles, and kind of, like you say,
Mhm.
kind of disappear. I think if you kind of disappear, I think you're doing a great job, but you will stand out to the penciler who had that
Mhm.
faith in you, who, gave that to you. So that's the tricky part with being an inker, is that you have to contribute, so you are a value to the art, but not a distraction that stands out to where, like,
Mhm.
the penciler will love you, because what you're doing for them, you've saved them time and you've finished it and you haven't changed their stuff. If anything, it's a surprise for them. If you're really good at what you do, it's finishing it in a fresh way, that they're looking at their stuff in a fresh way, where
Mhm.
it's exciting now, and they didn't have to do like the little detail, um meticulous work
Yeah.
that, that they have no interest in doing. So that's kind of like your job, is to, you have this really fine line. Do enough so that you're contributing, that you make a difference, but not so much that you just completely dominate and you distract from it, and you
Mhm.
kind of like, it's, I feel like you need to kind of work well together. And I think that is where maybe some of the aspiring inkers or new inkers should know, is that, you do have a role to play. It's not to upstage anyone. It's not to, necessarily build a name so you stand out. You can
Mhm.
do that, but it depends on are your priorities, to stand out, or
Mhm.
to have more work, or to establish a good working, chemistry with someone, or working relationship with, a few pencilers who are always going to call on you. So you have to know, like, what are your priorities? Or do you just want to be like just a really, really, like, a good tracer? That means you know how
Mhm.
to work the tools really well, but you're not going to deviate at all. And you're working with pencilers who are so clean, so finished. All they need is for you to put ink on it, and you absolutely, I mean, just make it pretty. um, so that's what I mean. So when I say these things, like, anything I say on YouTube or my social, it's more addressed to, like, for inkers who might have questions, or anyone who's
Mhm.
curious about it. Um, Whether people like you or not like you, or me like me or not like my work, it's not going to change what I do, because
Mhm.
I know that I know what my goal is, and I know what I want to do. I know what I want to establish for myself as, person in the industry, as a career. And
Mhm.
I hope what I can do is maybe help. And this is where, in terms of the industry, I know that, inking is kind of fading out a little bit, and pencilers are inking themselves. And to be honest, I don't mean any offense to some of the editors, but editors don't really know what inkers do, so they just, grab a cheap inker and assign it to a penciler, or to the project, and it does no favors to the art. It does no
Mhm.
favors to the penciler.
Mhm.
And I hear it all the time, like, I hate inkers, they ruined this project, or I hate inkers, they
Mhm.
ruined that, person's pencils. And there's validity in that, because I think that there are, inkers who feel like all I have to do is just trace this, and kills all the energy, drains away like any kind of like fun or action that was initially intended in the pencilers. Because if you don't know
Mhm.
how to follow through, and I, I'm no different starting off. I didn't know. I'm clueless, and this is just
Right.
new stuff I'm still learning. And so I think, new inkers and editors also, I think this would help quite a bit, today, if editors would know how to match inkers to pencilers, to understand that their work has they have to work well together. Their work has to have good chemistry for the product to
Mhm.
be like exceptional. and I don't think that editors even know, or I don't know, maybe they don't care. They just need it inked so they can get it
Yeah.
published. But I think that it would be a great benefit if we can kind of go back and have that
Right.
in place, or have that be a consideration,
Right.
and go back to like making really quality art,
Yeah.
quality books to go with, great stories. And, again,
Yeah.
the benefit, to all this would be, um, I think the readers would appreciate. They might not know, or, like, be able to put their finger on it, but
Hmm.
it would definitely add to the final product. It's like, this
Hmm.
is awesome.
Hmm.
So, yeah, so I think, yeah, again, as an inker, I think that you have to like walk this really fine line of make a contribution, understand the
Hmm.
language that the pencil you're working with, what the language that they're speaking, understand their style, do a little bit of studying, and finish
Hmm.
it to where like they see you as an asset or a contributor.
Hmm.
Like if they need to do another job, or maybe it's time, restricted, or maybe for whatever reason, maybe, I mean, you can be an asset to them. They're like, I love working with this person. They made my job easy. So
Yeah.
this is where I feel like, yeah, an inker needs to be just, really, really good assistant for the penciler.
Right.
So,
Well, that leads to me to my last question here. There's a lot of female artists now than I think way back then, right? You have
mhm.
Natalie Sanders, you have Mika Dolphin, you have Sebian Rich, you have yourself. Um, what would be your advice to anyone who's inspiring artists, whether it's for color or inker, as being one of the one of the I would say from my recollection one of the best female artists today, and in the 90s too as well. What would be your one advice to them entering to a world where you and I both know is dominated by a lot of male artists? What would be your main advice to them if they're very curious and trying to enter this world?
I think my one advice, not to females, males, to everyone, to any young person, because it's so. I think there's so much noise going on, whether it's in the industry or the nation, the world, everywhere. There's always going to be a lot of noise. So my one advice is that you have to really, really focus on your goals and drawing
Yeah.
what's drawing you to that goal, and focus on your mission. And you really, and it's not easy. I mean, no matter what age, young, old, or however long you've been in the industry, there's going to be so much noise and distractions. I think that sometimes you can be so drawn into all these things that it will take you off your focus or your goal.
Mhm.
um, Sometimes you do have to tune out, just to go back to what was I trying to do again. So figure out what it is that you're trying to do. I mean, you're trying to build a name for yourself, or you're trying to build a name for your like a title or a
Mhm.
project, or your brand. Are you trying to, what is your goal? And it can't be tied to someone else's goal, or the goal of this group, or the goal of that group, because at the end of the day, like, everything around the world will shift, and it will move
Mhm.
back and forth. There, something new is trending, eh,
Mhm.
this morning to tonight. I mean, there's constantly like something new trending that you can jump on and off, that will get you fired up, that
Right.
will, grab you emotionally. So I think it's really, really important to like spend time with yourself, figure out what it is that you specifically need, what is your goal, and do your very, very best every day to stay connected to that. And it doesn't mean that you don't care about all these other things. You do. You have to set your priorities. And I think that it is so, so important for young people to say, decide for themselves. You don't have to
Mhm.
prove anything to anyone. You don't have to fit into any club or any industry. It's okay if you're a girl in all, in a male dominated world, or if you're a guy
Mhm.
in a female dominated world. It doesn't matter. You don't have to fit into any kind of like a mold, or to look like, or to sound like, or to be the first of this, or to be one of that, to be
Mhm.
anything. Just be who you are. Decide what you need, what you want, what you want to express most about yourself. Maybe it's just, eagerness to learn. Maybe is
Mhm.
to build, know what it is that you're trying to build. Because if you have an influence like from this group, they might change and be something else the next day and move with the trend. Then where will you be? You don't have a solid ground to stand on. I think
Mhm.
at the end of the day, you have to know what it is that you want, what it is that you need, and tune out if you're ever lost in all that noise, because there's a lot of noise. It's going to be busy, it's going to be noisy, it's going to be in your face. I think that you need to like set aside, if you have to set aside time to anchor yourself, make it a practice every day. Make it a practice. Maybe you
Mhm.
start the day off just being connected to yourself and your goal and your mission, and have that be your anchor for the day. You can, and that's something that you can use in a career, in your personal life, because life is a long time, full of a lot of stuff going on all the time.
Mhm.
And it's so easy to be swept away in so many different areas. And before you know it, you're lost in the world that you don't even connect to, or don't recognize yourself, or don't recognize anyone around you, because things change all the time. The one thing that you need
Mhm.
to know and to be connected with constantly is what is your goal, what it is that you need to make your life the best that you can be, to make yourself the best that you can be, the person that you can sit at home with, sit quietly with, sit
Mhm.
at peace with. And if you wake up in the beginning of the day excited about something in your life that you want to do, and you end the day with going, okay, I did a little bit to contribute to that, or to take steps towards that. It's different from everyone, so I'm not going to make it specific to art.
Mhm.
So it's different for everyone. So with each day, if you can be connected with yourself and your goal and your peace, you can start that way. At the end of the day, if you know that you've taken some steps, and and with all that's going on, that you come back to that at the end of the day, or you stay true to that, and navigate around all the other stuff, and you're able to manage that. I think that that's a good day.
Mhm.
And so that's my one advice for anyone young. And like I said, I was at the studio, and it's just there we had uh, I'm not the only woman that exists in the studio, but in that office, I mean, like I said, we all have our own obstacles. Know what you have to work around. It is going to be different, from someone else. But
Mhm.
it it can't be such a distraction or a discouragement that
Right.
you put on yourself. So I think that's
Right.
it. It's just knowing that, okay, I just want to learn. I just want to get as much experience as possible. I want my work to stand out for itself. And
Right.
anything else that may benefit or come, about from having, focus on that, I think only good things can come. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's,
Of course.
yeah, that's my advice. A little long,
No,
but
of
that's
course.
my advice. Yeah.
No, of course. No, definitely. It makes total sense. Before we end everything here, please let everybody know where they can find you. Be as detailed as possible. Instagram, websites, anything else, YouTube channel.
I am on YouTube. I am on X. I am on Instagram, and I just my website is now live, sandrahope.net. You can go and see some of my silly little fun gouache paintings that I've done and silly doodles. I will post more. I just started it, so it's still, like I said, it's still under construction, and I'm slowly adding to it, and I'm still learning quite a bit. I'm on Instagram. It's Inkmonkey Hope. Inkmonkey Hope. So Instagram and X, both the same. And I am on YouTube. It's Sandra Inkmonkey Hope. So those are all the places that I'll be. And I think
website. You don't have you have a website as well?
sandrahope.net. That is my website. I don't go
Perfect.
to too many conventions, so that's my solution for like being present at, like kind of convention style. There's original art there. There's silly stuff that I do, and there's a blog section where I think I might do some videos or just share a little bit more of like, the work stuff. I'm not sure. I'm just like, like they say, like build that parachute as you're flying down. So that's kind of how it's how I approach everything. It's like, let's just jump and see what happens. And that's how I go with every day. Like, let's just dive in and we'll figure it out as we go. So so my website is there. So go there, check it out. And if you need to buy art, go there. That is because people ask all the time on social, where's your art? Where's your art? So now it's there. So and YouTube, I'll post like, a little bit of clips of my, as I'm working, and usually it's not any kind of like an organized content creating. None of my accounts are. It's just goofy me, spontaneously just posting up stuff. So there's no rhyme or reason. There's no, like I said, let's just go with it and see what happens. So you can find me at all those places.
Well, there you go, guys. So you guys now know where to find her. Again, for me, this is amazing. I've, like I said before, I've looked back on everything since Flashpoints, and then look back, and then I look forward to like new stuff that you have coming in. I think that you're one of the most versatile artists out there. You're amazing. Now I'm looking back on a lot of work that you've touched on, that you inked on, and I'm trying so hard to find what is her style. I'm trying to pinpoint. I'm like, this is just from my own knowledge, that if I see something, I'm like, I know she touched that because this, right? That kind of stuff, right? So, but I think and I think your art is really amazing. I've been following you for the longest time, and I've always wanted to talk to you and just like know what it's like, being like, just an anchor and just being that versatile. And one of the questions I had was like, why are you not more, well known everywhere? And the only thing I can think of is that you're too versatile. You're too good at what you do.
Something just came to mind when you were saying that. I don't know if you know much about cooking or baking, but I'm kind of I'm kind of like the little pinch of salt. Like maybe you can't identify it, but it's kind of just enough to enhance things and make it like
it's like, oh, what is that?
It's
like
because it's also in some desserts, because the salt is a nice contrast to sugar. It just really stages it well, but you don't know that it's there. I don't think people know that sometimes like in baking and baked goods, just pinch of salt just takes it that one more level up. So
I think that's a certain je ne sais quoi kind of thing, right?
So whatever it is, there's a high likelihood that I have touched it somewhere, whether it be panel borders, background, just a page here or there, because I inked as much as possible. And I think, like I said, I don't even know, like I'll, what it is that I've worked on. And I think that I'm grateful for it, because like I said, I've learned so much. And you asked about current work. I am working on something I'm really, really excited about. I can't wait for it to be like out in the world and we can talk about it, but it's another opportunity. And so
Well,
many other opportunities have
yeah,
come my way. I wish I could say yes to all of them. And in
yeah,
early days, I did, but these days I cannot. There are many reasons where I cannot, but there's so many wonderful things where I'm like, oh, I so want to stay. I so want to do this. But sometimes timing is everything. And I wish
yeah,
there were 10 of me and I can do everything.
yeah,
But because like I said, to feed my own need to, like, I still want to learn, and there's so many
yeah.
people I'd love to work with, and opportunities, like, to work with people I've never worked with before. So it's ongoing. I feel like I'm kind of like, I've been doing this a long time, but so many
Hmm.
different stages, and this stage is like so exciting and still fun, but now like my eyes are a little more open, and whereas before,
Yeah,
maybe I was just like walking in a dark clay cave and I still don't know my way around. But now, like, some of the
right.
lights are coming on and it's like, oh, that much more exciting.
Yeah,
So yeah, so there will be more, and
yeah.
yeah, I'm
No, I mean,
excited. So yeah,
I mean, like I'm. It's July. July. It's always. Not a lot of people know July is always a hectic month for
it
comic
is.
books because of San Diego Comic Con.
Yeah.
So whenever they announce whatever your new project is, I'm assuming it's gonna be San Diego Comic Con. I would love to have you back and we can talk more about it, and then we can promote it and let
Okay.
people
Yeah.
know, give
Yeah.
more details on it.
Yeah, July is crazy. I used to live in San Diego, and I remember all our hair on fire. I mean, people could say it was just it's just like a blur. But yeah, I don't know when it's going to come out, and we're still early. And I think it's going to be a project we're going to take time doing. So, like I said, just I love the idea of getting back to having time to create like beautiful art, not just for publishing. Original art is huge. I'm
Hmm.
really, really appreciating original art, and I'm working with someone I've not had like a solid project with. So I'm really excited about that.
Right.
But yeah, like I said, I'm really excited. I better get out of here before I leak anymore. So thank you.
I'm like, just a little few more minutes. It's almost there.
So close.
Well,
I better go now. I
yeah,
appreciate you reaching out to me and wanting to talk to me. And
of
like I said,
course.
it's fun for me to talk about. Like I said, I'm just kind of waking up to this world, and I appreciate you giving me a voice and giving me
Of
the
course.
opportunity to like reach out and for people to get to know me. So I appreciate that.
Of course. Yeah, and I would love to have you back again in as much time as you want. It's amazing talking to you. So,
Thank you.
um but for everyone else out there, if you guys have any questions, definitely let me know. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next pod. See you later.